There are a lot of people you can point blame at for BC's 1-5 start, but the buck stops with head coach Bill O'Brien.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for almost a decade. If you want the latest Boston College news, analysis, and details, you are in the right spot. Locked On BC is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, we're going to carve up that blame pie. We're going to look at the defense, the players, the coaching, everything in between. We're going to dive into what makes BC a 1-5 team, and I'll explain who I think is the biggest culprit. So let's kick it off. Now, if you've been listening to any of the press conferences, there has been one theme from Bill O'Brien about who's to blame for the 1-5 start. That is, he is. He has said emphatically after every single loss that the losses are on him, that he is not doing his job as the head coach to motivate his coaches, to do the right things, to beat the right game plan, to improve, to get to where they need to be. So I'm going to take his word for it. The biggest issue here has to be with him. If that's what he says, and it could be just him protecting his players and coaches, I give them that too. But O'Brien has said, look, this is my fault. And he's the one that makes, he's the highest paid employee on that football staff. He's the head guru. This is on him. So he says it. You got to take his word for it. This is on Bill. And, if you're looking at what he has to improve upon, we'll get into some of that in just a moment. But you've hired a staff that have had some struggles. Like we'll get into the offense in just a moment. The staff is not getting this team prepared to the level that they need to be. So I look at him for that as part of his big issue. But let's get into number two. The number two thing on our blame pie for a 1-5 start is an absolute failure in the transfer portal. Now, the one caveat here is when you look at the entire group of what you brought in, you have transfers that you brought in that you expected to play immediately or battle to play immediately. And then you had some projects, some guys that you expected to take a little bit of time to develop, but you liked what you saw on their tape. So I don't hate that he went and brought in Amir Johnson. You probably don't even know who he is yet. He's an offensive lineman from Merrimack. He hasn't played a single down, but that he wasn't expected to. He was supposed to just sit and develop. That's fine. Favor Bate should have been the same thing, but because of BC's struggles with what they have, he's been thrusted into this, I think he played like 50 snaps last game. You have him. But then you brought in guys who had 1 year of eligibility. So you knew either they were brought in to just boost depth or to start or to play significant roles. Guys like Chuck Nato, Anye Nuisi, you brought in Seamus Florio, your punter. You brought in Michael Bumpus. You brought in a bunch of guys that you expected to play right away. And the results aren't good. They're not good. Go down the list of who they brought in. First of all, Dylan Larnigan, he's your starting quarterback. He's probably the biggest, he's still a question mark because he started off hot, has really fallen off a cliff. But if he's your quarterback in the future, I can't say that that's a fail. I'm not going to put that there yet. Ty Lockwood, I watched at camp, and I thought this is a guy that could play. I thought, I never saw him as a guy that was going to take over Jeremiah Franklin, but I thought he'd be playing. Where is he? Haven't seen him at all other than on special teams. So there's a disconnect there. I don't know what happened. He seems like it's not working. Whatever it is, you had Jeremiah Franklin go down. He's going to have to play. Will he be able to do it? But you saw Kalen Chudzinski come in, a guy that, was, I think he was a low 3-star for 247 last year. He's taken over that spot. So Ty Lockwood didn't hit. VJ Wilkins, he's on the back of a milk carton at this point. He played 0 snaps last game. 0. Now, BC played a lot of 1-2 offense where they had 2 tight ends, and they were basically running out the same 3 wide receivers, and it was, Dawson Pugh, Lewis Bond, and Reed Harris. And they didn't change or vary on that at all. But where is VJ Wilkins? This was something I said during the summer. It was a really, and I don't know, maybe there's things behind the scenes that I'm not aware of. The spring, he was electric. This was a guy that made a ton of plays during their scrimmages during the spring. And I know it's spring, but summer, he gets hurt. And okay, he's not going to practice because he's hurt. But then he's healthy, and I don't see him again. And now this year, we see him make 2 big catches, and then he disappeared. What is going on there? I don't have an answer. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with VJ Wilkins. He seems like the fastest guy on your team, like someone maybe you want to get out there, but for whatever their scheme is, they're not getting him on the field. And there could be other things that they need him to do that he can't do. I'm not sure. But whatever the case, VJ Wilkins, miss right now. I mean, you got to be, confused on what's going on there. You brought in guys like Vaughn Pemberton and Zeke Moore, who are fine role players, but they're not going to be game changers. On the defensive side, this is where things get a little sticky. Anya Nuisi, he's not a starter. He's a role player. But you're forced now, because you don't have any other guys, to start him and play him significant snaps at times. Same thing with Favor Bate. I would guess, I loved the way that Bate played this summer, but I would guess that they were really hoping to kind of ease him in. Well, ease him in, they didn't have the opportunity to. He's had to play, and he's learning, he's building the plane as he goes. That's not a good thing. You brought in Chuck Nadeau, who played like 50 snaps, but that was because Quan Williams is hurt and was playing barely. Owen Stodmeyer's hurt. So you have these guys, and they're not really doing a whole lot. Your most valuable transfers that you brought in, and then you got guys like Jason Hewlett, who was only thrusted into play because of injuries, and he struggled. You had guys like Mekhi Byerson and Chris Marable. Like, they're not doing anything in terms of like pushing this defense forward. They're fine, but they're more like role players at this point. You needed somebody to do something, and you didn't get anybody. That was a big issue. I would say the biggest impact transfer you landed was Seamus Florio, your punter, who has been pretty consistent throughout this year. That's how things went. So I look at this transfer portal class minus Lonergan, who's still a question mark, and I say to myself, they didn't really improve in any area grabbing guys out there. Now, they probably wanted it for depth, and because of something we'll get into in a moment, injuries kind of dealt with that. But that being said, you looked at your defensive line last year, and I don't know what the NIL money is. That's not my job to look at that. But I'm saying you lost Donovan Azaraku. Your hope was Quintavious Hutchins, and then I don't know, Josiah Griffin, Clive Wilson. You didn't have anybody there. You needed to get somebody, and you went the FCS route, and it didn't work. You get Ela Boykins, another one, like at D2, and like these guys need time. They need time to grow. And you were hoping you'd have somebody. You didn't. So the transfer portal whiff, let's call it what it is another piece of why they're 1-5. They needed pieces to get better. They didn't get anything. They got question marks like Dylan Lonergan. They got Seamus Florio, and then a whole bunch of guys that either need more time or just were put in positions they did not need to be in. And that will be something we'll talk about in just a moment. Let's get into that. Injuries, how that has really messed up BC season. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your serverware needs a refresher. The guest room could use new bedding. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready for the holidays. From Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, and outdoor inflatables, It's your one-stop shop for everything in your room. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. With free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. I'm starting to serve more and more for Christmas dinners. I need to make sure that my house has everything from decorations to serverware to plates to all that good stuff. The best place to go for it for me is Wayfair. I know I'm going to get the best at a reasonable price. So get organized, refreshed, and ready for holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, the new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put $5 down, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. If you do not live in the state of Massachusetts and you can use a site like FanDuel, you could look at the BC UConn game. Right now, the odds are BC 2.5, which is basically just the home field advantage. Doesn't feel very good. Maybe you feel one way or the other. And you can go to FanDuel and you can make those wages. Pretty simple to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get yourself started. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, and thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every single day. And to my everydayers out there, those who have made Locked On Boston College your everyday listen, thank you so much. We have grown so much, and it's all because of you. I hope you enjoy this podcast. We try to make it entertaining, we try to make it interesting, and you learn something from every episode. So hopefully you do. Now, we're getting close to the holidays. Get those pies. You get your pumpkin pie, your blueberry pie. You cut it up. Now we got our Blaine pie. And I already told you the biggest slice, that goes to Bill O'Brien. He said it himself. Other slices we just gave out was a failure in the transfer portal. That's partly why we're 1-5. The second is something that's kind of out of BC's control, though I'd have to say, wonder what the injuries are, because we don't know what they are, and how they relate to conditioning. But injuries. BC right now is decimated on the defensive side of the ball. Like completely ravaged in terms of what they have. Because if you look at what BC should have out there, if they were healthy, your defensive line and your secondary shouldn't be all that bad. If you had Amari Jackson and Sire Torrance as your corners, you'd look and say to yourself, that's pretty good. But you lost them both. And hey, that's a huge, I can't undersell how big of a loss that is. And the coaching staff, they can say, hey, the next guy up and all that stuff. But you look, I think Mitch was telling me, I think it was Iowa State lost their two starting corners and then lost the last two games to like two bad teams. It's bad when that happens. So that was a huge loss. Then you look at the linebackers. Who had I said all camp was going to be critical to have a big season for BC? Bam Crouch. And who hasn't played in the last 4 games? Bam Crouch. Losing him was enormous. You could not bear to lose a linebacker when you don't have experienced talent behind him. You have Bryce Steele, and I'm not going to knock Bryce Steele at all here because this is a guy coming back from a health scare that I can't even imagine. And he's doing his damnedest to play his heart out there. And so I don't have any ill will with how he's playing out there. It's tough. But you got Owen McGowan. Owen McGowan is Owen McGowan. He's not a playmaker. He is just a solid guy who can do some things. But when you play against some athletic players, sometimes he gets exposed. It's just the way it is. But you needed Bam out there, and you don't have him. As I said before, you whiffed in the transfer portal. You were hoping Jason Hewlett, but there were times where he wasn't even playing. And so you're kind of just stuck. You look at the defensive line. Owen Stodmeyer had a horrendously scary injury over this summer. We don't even know what the end result of that was. He doesn't seem like he's 100%. Quan Williams is hurt. He isn't 100%. You had Quintavious Hutchins. I think he's playing with the club now. He's not 100%. You have Max Tucker playing with, I think he had like a wrap on his arm. He's not 100%. Let's be real here. We could talk about all these other things. Injuries has been a massive issue for BC. And I don't know what is causing all this, if it's just football's violent and this stuff happens, or there's injuries that they could prevent. I don't know. I'm a podcaster. They don't release what the injuries are. I just know that there's a lot of guys on that defense that could help that are out right now. And that is a major, major problem. You're playing teams like UConn. You got Louisville coming up. When your defense is as stripped down as it is right now, it's a scary, scary option looking forward. Because you got guys, I mean, you watched against Clemson. Owen McGowan got banged up. Omar Thornton got banged up. Quan Williams played 7 snaps. Jason Hewlett went down. Like, it's just like every week, like you could take that depth chart and just go red mark, red mark, red mark, red mark. And you just see how much BC's defense has had to change. And it wasn't the strongest to begin with. It has just gotten progressively weaker and weaker. They're letting up like 34 points per game right now. And I have to believe that a good chunk of that is because they don't have the guys out there. You've got Ashton Cunningham chasing guys and TJ Green chasing guys, and they're true freshmen. Your goal as a coach is you probably want, unless they're a blue chip or a guy that just picks it up real fast, you want these guys to take their time and like kind of ease into things. But you're throwing them right in the pot, and that's because of these injuries. It has been brutal for Boston College. So that's another big piece of this pie. And speaking of injuries and tying it, I put my notes. This is the title of my next one. Oh my God, the defense. Yeah, the defense. There's a big piece of the defense that is the injuries. I'm going to say that right off the bat. That you're playing Cunningham, you're playing Amarian Davis, you're playing a lot of young Micah Ahmedi's playing a whole bunch of snaps. You're really forced to play with the cards that you were not hoping to be dealt with, and that's what you're stuck with now. The truth of the fact of the matter is, the defense is not stopping anybody right now. They haven't stopped anyone for the last 5 games. They didn't stop Michigan State. They didn't stop Stanford, Cal, and then Pitt and Clemson. The wheels fell off. So it's looking at that defense, and you can blame that they don't have the talent. You can blame that they're forced with injuries. But, just as a unit, it's pulling BC out of games. Like, if BC could have made a stop or two against Michigan State or Stanford or Cal, we're looking at a whole different ball game right now. We'd be talking about how, average Boston College is, but, they could be like 3-3 or whatever. But right now we're looking at this defense and going, they can't stop anybody. And I'm worried that against UConn, a team that can run the football, BC is in big trouble. And the defense, in the state of where they're at right now, is causing me to believe that you guys, some of you guys out there, you say the same thing, like, oh, this team's going to stink and whatever. But you've been saying that for 5 years. They're going to be 1-11, blah, 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 blah. Sure. I kind of am on that board right now because this defense is not going to help BC out at all. Now, they don't quit. They're playing their butts off out there. And believe me, these young guys are gaining valuable experience when they need it. But when you have to go out there and you're letting up 5 touchdowns, I don't know how you're going to overcome that. I really don't. So honestly, it's, as I said before, it's a cyclical thing with them too. Your front 7 can't do anything in terms of getting pressure, especially the front 4. They're not winning any battles at all. You don't have your Cam Horsley. You don't have your Donovan Azaraku. You have to then blitz constantly. And when you blitz, your secondary, who is very young, gets put on an island. And when they had to guard Bryant Wesco or Kenny Johnson, who's like 23, good luck. These kids are 18 years old. That is not an easy matchup. That's darn near impossible. And so it just continues to cycle. And how does that stop now? I have no idea. You don't have anybody on that front four that's going to all of a sudden learn how to rush the passer. You don't have, and maybe the secondary will pick some stuff up, but like, I'm still skeptical. I really am. So the defense is another piece that I think is going to be a real problem. Now, in our final segment, I'm going to look at the last two pieces of blame of why BC is 1-5. I'll explain who they are and why they are being blamed in just a moment. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping up at the checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Look, I was trying to help my parents buy some tickets to some BC games. I went on the BC site. The prices were very different on Game Time right now. You can get really good prices, and you know the fees right off the bat. I bought them. I helped them buy it. They were immediately transferred over like a couple days later. Super easy. Boom, boom, boom. You saved money, and you get to go to the game. That was why I think Game Time is so easy to use. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. The Charitable Irish Society has been part of Boston's history since 1737, making it the oldest Irish society in the Americas. With deep ties to Boston College, its leaders and members continue a proud tradition of service. Today, the society is still living its mission, raising thousands of dollars each year to help immigrants in need, Irish and non-Irish alike. Last year, the support helped a family from Northern Ireland who faced a medical crisis and couldn't cover rent and bills. You can be part of that impact. Membership is just $75 a year, and it goes directly to helping families when they need it most. And mark your calendar. The annual Silver Key Dinner is coming up October 29th at the UMass Club, honoring Archbishop Henning. Get your tickets for the annual Silver Key Dinner and join the Charitable Irish Society today at www.charitableirishsociety.org. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here. And if you're looking for a second listen, check out Locked On ACC. They've been all over everything going on in the Atlantic Coast Conference. You can check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, we're diving into this blame pie. BC sits at 1-5. Why? We've already talked about Bill O'Brien. We've talked about the defense, the transfer portal, lots of different things. One piece to me that has struck me is just the struggles of the offense. And this is my final two. They're going to combine together. Part of this is one piece, which is the offensive line. The second is just the predictability and lack of ingenuity on that offensive game plan calling. So let's start with the offensive line. For 5 of the 6 games that you've played, you've trotted out the same lineup. And for all 5 of those games, they've been pretty decent at pass pro. They've been able to block. Even against Clemson, they were able to hold that defense pretty away from Dylan Larnagin, other than a few sacks that they did allow. But the run blocking for those games, for the most part, has been atrocious. They have not been able to hold their blocks. They've been beaten up, and they've been, beaten around. The one game that they did change it was because of Jude Bowery's injury. They moved Logan Taylor to tackle. They moved Robert Smith to guard. And hey, Turbo Richard was able to run the football. Now, Cal, I guess, maybe they're not the best defense, but you weren't able to run the ball against Fordham either. So my biggest question here is, and I've brought this up multiple times, why did they switch this? I don't know. I don't know why they went back. You got to get Jude Bowery back in. I get that. But Logan Taylor, to me, is a tackle. He's playing guard right now. He's not doing a bad job at guard. But I think he would be, we keep hearing from Bill O'Brien, who again is my number one in terms of who to blame, that they're thinking of everything and changing things as they need it. Well, the offensive line hasn't worked, but they continue with this group of five as the way it is. I would say, what the heck hurts trying something different? Maybe you sit Kevin Klein, you bring Robert Smith back in, and see if you can hit that again. You're already 1-5. Why does it hurt to try it? And so that always bugs me. Then you look at the offense, and the offense is, yes, it's a pro style offense, but it is as stagnant and predictable as it gets. We went through 5 games where they were running, as Mitch has said, the mesh wheel route and another pass play. I think he called it spot, over and over and over again. And to the point where opponents knew it was coming. And so it would get less and less effective as the game went on. That's one thing. But you don't try anything, really. It just seems like the offense continues to try to do the same things over and over again and doesn't take a chance. It doesn't do anything exotic. And I'm not saying you need to be a team of gimmicky plays, but maybe you're playing a team like Clemson right off the bat. Why would it hurt to not try something a little different? Do an end around, send Dylan Lonergan out for a pass. I don't know. Try something. Your offense isn't doing anything. Dylan Lonergan has not thrown a touchdown pass since Stanford. That was a month ago. You got to figure something out here. So I look at Will Long and I say, this is a guy that needs to figure something out fast. He hasn't adjusted. He has not really changed much. Where is this going to come from? Is it putting Grayson James in? Is it finding a way to use a VJ Wilkins? Is it something? You got to change something. You can't keep... Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. And they keep doing it. So I don't know what they're going to do. You're running the football. You're running it better. But you got to figure something out here. You're going to play UConn, and here's what I think is going to happen in this game, and it's what worries me about this game on Saturday. UConn has a running attack. You can't stop your defense isn't able to stop anybody. They're going to score points, but I think UConn's going to probably drain that clock as much as they can with long, soul-draining drives. If BC's offense futzes around and doesn't do what they've been able to do in those first couple games, UConn could jump out to a lead, and then BC's going to be playing, from behind and again struggling. I worry that offense won't have the time to click, because if UConn BC can't get off the field against UConn, and they're doing like 8-minute drives, good luck. BC's going to lose that game. I'm worried about that. This offense needs to click. We have not seen explosives. We have not seen much out of this team, and I thought that was going to be there. So the offense is the last piece. The offense and the offensive line. They've both been a disappointment as the season has gone on, and you got to figure something out. So there's how I blame things of why BC's 1-5. I don't think I was too tough. Maybe I was. But thank you all for listening. Later this week, we're hoping to talk to the Locked On UConn site podcast. We'll get them on. On tomorrow's show, I promise you I will talk about the exhibition game. I'm recording this before the game is over, so unfortunately I don't have the results in front of me. But we'll talk about what happened there. I'll give you my thoughts on that and everything in between. Thank you all for listening. I'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day.